Hello, everybody. I hope you're all enjoying the conference. Coming up next, we'll be speaking about a subject that I'm really passionate about, and it's about automated testing for Uno platform applications. I will be sharing with all of you during the next 20 minutes or so quite a few things that I have learned during my time developing Uno platform applications, and how can we develop the best test possible in a way that makes us save both time and money, and also how can we prepare our apps to be better tested. So I want to start this little section by speaking a little bit about myself. My name is Lester Botello. I'm a mobile software developer from Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. I've been developing software for the best part of the last 20 years or so across a lot of different stacks inside the .NET ecosystem, but also outside the .NET ecosystem. I've developed web applications from all the way back to web forms, then MVC, a little bit of Blazor, Windows applications. But right now I'm focusing on mobile applications, specifically using Uno platform. You can find me all over the internet through my handle at Lester Botello, almost everywhere. If you have any questions about this talk or about any other subject, please feel free to reach out. So let's jump right into it. And I would like to start with a very brief introduction to automated testing. And to the uninitiated developer in testing applications, the first question that may come to our mind is, why should I even bother to automate my Uno platform application tests? I think we could argue that the main reason is, of course, quality. A tested application is less likely to have bugs, and that, of course, translates into happy users. While some developers might actually neglect writing tests for their applications, the truth is that tested applications not only ensure quality software is delivered to the customers, but it also reduces the time spent fixing obscure bugs, and as we're all told, time is money. So automated tests also help you ensure that your business logic produces the best results you're expecting. And this is especially important to catch things that can break after new updates, which is what we call regressions. And more importantly, automated testing can enable you to catch difficult to reproduce issues, which is what QA folks used to call edge cases. Edge cases are difficult to reproduce, but they're still important to fix because they might as easily break the user experience for any user. So there are a lot of different kinds of automated testing, but for Uno applications, we want to focus on a particular kind of automated testing called UI testing. UI testing focuses on the visual aspects of your app, as the name suggests. The idea behind it is to simulate user interaction with specific elements of your app and then assert any changes to the rest of the UI. UI testing also helps you ensure that the app is snappy. One of the things that can more easily discourage users from using your app is a slow and unresponsive app. So UI testing can help you identify those bottlenecks. But perhaps the most important aspect of UI testing is the reason for why it's most important, particularly for Uno platform apps, is to ensure the consistency of the user experience across all platforms and device types. So UI testing is made possible through something called Uno.UI tests, which is the cornerstone of testing Uno platform applications. Uno.UI test is built specifically for Uno platform apps, and it's based on NUnit version 3, which allows us to take advantage of all the features of NUnit, including the integrated assertion framework, which is amazing. Uno.UI test leverages Xamarin.UI test for Android and iOS, and Selenium for WebAssembly. That allows us to test our applications not only on mobile, but also on the web just as easily. Finally, but not less important, Uno.UI test supports testing your application on a CI platform like App Center. That is very useful to actually automate the whole process. So that's about the introductory part. Let's discuss about what is the best way to ensure our Uno application is testable from the start. So we can summarize the steps for writing the best Uno platform application using these 4 steps. We're gonna try to go through each one of them. So one of the first things that we want to make sure is that our UI elements are properly identified. This will help our test scripts to easily find our controls in the visual tree once the application is rendered. Identification for Uno app controls is done through the XName property, which actually sets the automation properties.automationID property, which is what Uno.UI_test uses to identify our controls. So the second thing that we want to make sure of is that we can leverage a base class that our tests can extend from. This base class is already provided by the default Uno platform test application template, but we want to further extend this class with methods that can handle common testing scenarios. The next step is we want to design our tests. We want to make sure that our test classes are grouped into each individual unit of work. For each unit of work, we want to have individual test cases, and for each one of these test cases, we want to be able to evaluate each expected outcome. So how does this translate into our UI? So in terms of how this translates into our UI, each unit of work should represent a page in our UI. Inside our page, we want to identify every possible interactive action that we can take on the page and write tests accordingly, writing one test for every specific outcome. So we identify our unit of work, we identify a test case, and then write tests for every outcome that we're expecting. Okay, this is really important to take into consideration, because when we are looking at our completed test, we are going to look for specific completed scenarios to be tested on. So that's about the theory. Let's move on to a little demo that we have prepared for this talk. So in this demo, we're going to focus on a simple application that we have created. It's a very simple Uno platform application. And we already have created a Uno.UI test project that we're going to use to test a single page in this application. So this is a very simple application. I already have it running here on Android. We're going to focus on Android for this demo for time purposes. For time reasons. But for this application right here, we want to focus on this login page right here. As you can see, we have a text box right here, and we're being asked to enter our username. If we come here and we enter our username, right, and say Lester, for example, and click on validate username, notice that we now have an error that has shown up at the top that says, please enter a valid email address. So we need to, the application is actually expecting us to use to enter an email address. So this name is not valid. So we're gonna go ahead and enter a valid email address using my personal email. We're going to click on validate username again. And now you can see that not only the message has disappeared at the top, but also a new panel has enabled below that has a new text box that allows me to enter my password, right? So we're going to focus on testing this complete scenario right here, writing a very simple test class. And we're going to move to our project right now. And the first thing we want to do is we want to take a look at the actual page that we're creating. So we notice here, we're not going to go through all the controls right here, but you can notice that some of the most important controls here have already set the XName property. Okay, this is important because when we are writing tests, and I want to write tests, for example, evaluating this error message right here, I will be able to easily identify this control using this XName right here, this string right here that says error message. So it's not necessary that we enter the XName property for all the controls, only the ones that we're interested in testing. But it's still a good practice to enter the XName property for all controls, because you might not be thinking about testing it now, but you might think about testing it later. So that's pretty much our page, right? And we already identified all the controls, so that part is okay. So the next thing I want to show you is the test-based class. So this test-based class that we see here is the same default test-based class that is included as part of the default UI test project for Uno platform. This base test class already takes care of a lot of the boilerplate, like setting the constant and the initializers. It includes this nice property right here that allows me to take to hold off a reference of the whole app. But I can extend this class even further by writing some methods that I can use to be leveraged on any test that actually inherit from this test-based class. Here's an example. I have written a small method right here that is called tap element when ready, that basically takes as a parameter an element ID. With this element ID, then I'm able to call another method that is called query. This returns a reference of the method, and then I can wait for the element, wait until the element is ready. I have a second optional parameter that is called flash element. If I want to flash this element on the screen before I tap on it, I can pass this parameter right here, and then I flash the element, and then finally I tap the element. If I don't use this method, I have to write all this before I actually write my test. But now I have a single method that allows me to to perform all these actions using a single call. Okay, so let's move on to our MainTest class. So we have we are writing tests for this page right here that is called main page. So it makes sense that we name the corresponding test as main page tests. This allows us to easily identify that we are trying that when we are looking at this either in the CI or in the text explorer below right here, we will be able to see that whenever we see tests grouped under this, we are looking at the test for the main page. Okay, and this becomes our main unit of work. So the main unit of work for our test is going to be the main page. And then we're going to start looking at some tests that I have already written. So the first thing that I want to test is I want to test what happens when the email is invalid with the error message. So notice that I've written this method right here. The method name for this is it may look a little funny, but this is actually a good practice. It is a good practice to name your method in a way that the method itself can easily identify what the test is going to do. So right now we are testing when the email is invalid, the error message should be displayed. So when this test is running and is being displayed on whether it's in the CI or on the Test Explorer on Visual Studio, we will be able to see exactly what this test is trying to achieve just by looking at the method name. You can also see that I also set the description property of the test right here when I marked the method as a test, and this is a more friendly name, and the reason for this is because some CI tools might show you this method name, but some other CI tools will actually prefer showing this this description right here. The same is true for different development environments. For Visual Studio, the Test Explorer will always focus on showing the method name. It doesn't show the description, but if you run this same test, for example, in Writer, you're going to notice that Writer is going to prefer the description right here. So this is why it's important to include them both. So let's move on to what the tests are actually testing, right? So for this test, I have already written the code for this test for time reasons. I'm going to comment this, and I'm going to uncomment this part of the test right here. So let's take a moment to read through all the steps that we're taking to actually test this. So the first thing that we're doing is that we're actually getting a reference to all of the different UI elements that we will be evaluating in this test. So I'm getting a reference to the error label using the query method that I already written here, that actually looks for the marked property of the iApp interface. So I'm getting a reference from the error message, from the error label, from the username field, for the validate button, and for the error message, because I will be using all of them in my test. So I'm waiting for the username field element to be ready. I'm tapping on it. I'm clearing whatever text is already in that field already. I'm going to enter a text. Remember that we are testing what happens when the email is invalid. So we want to enter a text that does not actually conform to the email standard. And then we're going to flash the validate button, and we're going to tap on the button. Then we're going to write this little thing right here, that using the get dependency property of the uno.ui test actually allows me to get the value of a specific property. I want to take the value of that text property, and I want to assert if the value of the error message property equals, please enter a valid email address. So if I run this, see if I come here and run this test, let's go here to see it performing live. So if I run this test, it should do exactly what we are asking it to do. It's going to come up, takes a moment, it taps on the field, it writes the query text, flashes the button, clicks on it, and the message pops up. And if you can see right here, this little green check mark here, it means that the test passed. So the test results were correct, and our test is fine. But the only problem is that we needed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, a bunch of lines just to write this test. So since I have already written some methods to do all these things, I can just comment this out and comment this, and I'm going to leverage some methods that I have already written in the base class that already does all of this, and I'm doing each action just only once. Enter text when ready. I pass the query string that we're trying to set, and the name of the user of the field that we're trying to test. Tap element when ready, and we're passing the true parameter. That means that we want to flash this element, and then we're going to assert this using the error message field. We want to assert the text property, and we want to make sure that it's the same as this text right here. So I'm going to right click on it, click on run test, go back to our interface right here. And this test should do exactly the same. So it's going to come up with, it's going to enter the query string, flash the button, click on it, the error message pops up, and we have the green check right here. So we managed to write the same test using 3 lines, okay? This will be particularly useful when we are actually writing more tests. All of the other test scenarios are already covered. When email is valid, error message should not be displayed, and they are done in the same way. So that's about it for the demo. And this is what I have to show you folks today. I'm gonna leave you with a few references. There's a great book, Creating Cross-Platform Applications with Uno Platform by Mike Lacey and Marcel A. Wagner. There's a nice blog post, and the code for the for this demo is already in my GitHub repository, so you guys can go fetch it out and play around with it as you see fit. So that's it for the demo. Thank you so much for being with us today, and keep enjoying the conference.